Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Palate, Plate, and Pleasure. First thing I'd like to do is go through the contents of your bag. Thank Charles W. Barger and Sons for being the sponsor of the hors d'oeuvre course. Of course, you have 3 bottles of delicious wine that we will get to as we go along. But we have our brie appetizer that we have it all prepped and ready to go. And I'm going to show you how to put that together at home. Then we have the easy part. We have the stuffed grapes that have some Chev cheese and almonds, and a little polenta canapé that we have a olive and sun-dried tomato tapenade to go with. And the last thing that you have in your bag for hors d'oeuvres is our shrimp skewers that we'll throw in the oven in just a minute, and a little container of herb aioli. And right about there is where you should start opening and having a little glass of your Martin Sancho Verdejo, which is the wine that we'll drink along with the hors d'oeuvres and while we're starting to prepare the meal. Then we have an Asian pear salad, which everyone that comes to the Southern Inn on a regular basis gets to see and has seen many times, where we have some lettuce from Paradox Farms, an Asian pear from Virginia Gold, some gorgonzola cheese, some of our toasted walnuts, a little shallot vinaigrette, and a red onion that we'll slice. The next course, our entree courses, are sponsored by Cornerstone Bank, and they have really outdone themselves tonight. We're going to have some scallops, and you'll find them all ready to go in a little container here, and some Brussels sprouts, which are all seasoned and ready to go in the oven, and potatoes, which have been cooked a little bit and we'll put in the oven a little bit later with the butter that you have and a little touch of garlic. And then we have a cauliflower puree and some already picked and prepared thyme to garnish your dish. We would recommend starting on the Valenseco Rioja Blanco. The second entree is a beef tenderloin, which we have all wrapped up. Some maitake mushrooms, asparagus ready to go in your oven to be roasted. The part of this dish that we're going to really be cooking is the risotto. I have a little touch of herbs that we're going to throw in some water or chicken stock, whichever you prefer and may have at your home, and a little Southern Inn demi-glaze to go along with the steaks. The final wine that we have provided this evening is the Calar Tempranillo, and it should pair very nicely with the fillets. Our fourth and final course is sponsored by CMA's Valley Dealerships, and it is a freeform apple tart. And what we've done with this is caramelize a little sugar and butter and deglaze it with some brandy, and then put the local apples in, let them cook a little bit so that they have caramelized a bit, and then we have a little fresh whipped cream. There are a couple things that you'll need to have in your home pantry: some salt and pepper, a little whole butter, some canola oil, or any other kind of neutral oil, so preferably probably not olive oil, and a little bit of last night's white wine that I'm sure you have left over in your refrigerator. So get a couple of projects started here that need a little more time, and then we're going to go back to the hors d'oeuvres. The first thing I'm going to do is make the cauliflower puree, which you already have in your bag in a nice little cup that you can warm up. One of the reasons that I like cauliflower puree is that it gives us something to do with the core as well. I'll put that stuff there for a moment. We'll chop the cauliflower up just a tad. And put it in a bowl. Always important to keep a clean working area. Not much on the floor, Suzanne. What do I put in here is cauliflower, a little bit of garlic, and Suzanne says I have to give you some secret ingredients. So I've already prepared a little celery root and parsnip that we will also put in the pan. And then I took the liberty a minute ago of starting some onions and garlic. And I put about a half of a medium onion in here, all diced up, and probably about 2 cloves worth of garlic. And we're gonna let that start to cook a little bit, and the onions soften and the garlic caramelize just a bit. While we're doing that, we will prepare our diced onions to start our risotto. And some nice half an onion sliced right around. And I know that everybody's going to say that you'd like the recipe, but unfortunately, George's recipes are a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and cook till done. So we're going to have a little bit less than half of an onion, all diced up and ready to go. We're going to put a little bit of butter in our sauce pot. You are having a nice healthy meal this evening. We'll let that melt. So we've got our butter melted. Still making risotto here. We have onions in the pot. A little diced, minced garlic. Once again, probably a couple of cloves worth. More if you like garlic, less if you don't. So we're going to let that simmer as well. And what we're doing as we are starting to cook these things is, the heat's kind of breaking it all down, and the sugars are starting to come out, and that's where we get all the flavor. Have a little salt into both. And a little fresh pepper. There we go. Got to be smarter than the pepper grinder. So as the onions become translucent and the garlic starts to smell nice and sweet, maybe even gets a little brown around the edges, so the next thing we're going to want to do is we'll put our parsnips and celery root and cauliflower in the pan. We have a great dishwashing staff here today. They're going to take care of having all this stuff nice and clean. And then we'll grab our risotto and put it in our pan with the onions and garlic for the risotto. We want to let the rice toast a little bit. It helps to give it a nice kind of nutty flavor and cooks off a little bit of the starch. All right. So we've got all this stuff kind of on a medium heat. And I'm going to grab a little bit of heavy cream to put in with the cauliflower to make the puree. So just a little reminder, I'm cooking the risotto here, and I also have our cauliflower puree going, but the only thing you're going to have to worry about is the risotto. And as it starts to toast a little bit, I'm going to begin to pour a little bit of our stock in there. And the key with risotto is a little bit of water at a time and stir it up. I'm not sure if I have any Italian heritage, but if I do, then my Italian grandmother somewhere down the line would just stand here and stir and stir and stir as they put in a little bit of the water, and each time to help it get that nice creamy flavor. I also am going to put a couple of sprigs of thyme into the cauliflower and just let that begin to simmer. Okay, so now we're going to start working on the hors d'oeuvres so that we can have a glass of wine. The first thing we're going to have is the little shrimp appetizer. It's nice. The shrimp are already skewered and seasoned and ready to go. And I would just cook them right on in this pan. And that way there's a few less dishes to do later. The next thing we're going to want to do is to make our little brie appetizers. It may be a little stuck together, but all you have to do is carefully pull them apart. Take your brie, and stick it right in the middle of each one. And then take a little bit of, put a little dab of the apple on top of each piece of brie. And then just take the corners and pull them up and kind of smash them together. And the other 4 little corners, kind of pull them up a bit. And again, while nobody was paying attention, I snuck in a little butter into the microwave. And I'm just going to put a little bit of it on the back of my spoon and brush my little hors d'oeuvres. Pull them all up so they're neat and tidy. Grab a cookie sheet. You could probably also, again, use the little foil pan if you don't want to have to clean the cookie sheet. I'm not much of a dishwasher. And then we'll just slide these in our oven that I have already preheated to about 375. So while those are cooking, we will make our little polenta and sun-dried tomato olive tapenade crostata. And you'll notice that we dug a nice little hole out of the top of the polenta just to put the tapenade down in. And there's plenty of tapenade there. So put as much on as you would like, or as little. And you'll probably have a little bit for a snack if you got a piece of bread, or to use as a spread for your sandwich tomorrow. So now we have our grapes stuffed with the Rathbone Farm goat cheese and almonds, and our little polenta and tapenade canapes coming along. They're ready to eat. The shrimp and brie are in the oven, so it's probably time to start thinking about a glass of wine. And this is a really nice Verdeo that we've selected to go with the meal this evening. You might not want to throw the cork away because there is quite a bit of wine, but then again, you might just throw the cork away. So I'm going to cheat and have a little sip of wine while we're waiting for the shrimp and brie to come out of the oven. And in just a minute, they'll be ready. We'll get a plate to put all the hors d'oeuvres on, and we'll be ready to go. We need to check our cauliflower puree that I'm making and our risotto. And the risotto is, as you can kind of see, absorbing all that good stock we made as it's cooking along. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to let the risotto cook till it's about 3/4 of the way done, maybe a little bit more. And then we're going to stop, talk about wine a little bit, and have some hors d'oeuvres. But it's still kind of cooking along over a medium-low heat, and is looking very good. We also have our hors d'oeuvres in here, and they are looking good. The shrimp needs about 1 more minute. and the brie are looking delicious. So we've let this cauliflower, I've let this cauliflower cook until the cauliflower itself is pretty tender. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pull the couple of sprigs of thyme that I put in there out. And I'm going to use a handy dandy immersion blender to puree it. And I've got to say that if you don't have one of these things, you really need one. One of the most useful tools in the kitchen. And I know that I haven't really pointed it out, but I have put a little bit of salt and pepper in things as we're going along. And I will taste them and probably adjust the seasoning as we go. So I've pureed this all up real nice. And it looks almost like what you have in your box. And I'm going to try to put this in the sink without leaving cauliflower puree all over the place. A little taste. A little touch more salt and pepper. But that's ready to go. And you can see that really quick, really easy, and only took me a couple of minutes to make something that is relatively healthy. Has a little bit of cream, but you could easily make it without. And use the core of the cauliflower that you might not use otherwise, along with some of the florets. So a little lesson in utilization there as well. Our risotto is looking pretty good. So I think what we'll do is we'll also turn the heat off on it until we get a little closer to having dinner. I believe our shrimp should be ready by now. So be careful, the stick is a little warm, but yep, they're looking good. The puff pastries need just another minute. They're still a little rare. You could also do the shrimp on your grill if you would prefer, or even throw them in a hot saute pan. But the best part of this is, voila, already cleaned up and ready to go. And it's been a minute or two longer. So now we have our brie puffs here. And you could use a little spatula, but I'm going to use a spoon. And you can tell that the dough is all cooked through and they are nice light brown. So here are your appetizers for this evening. And we'd like to thank Charles W. Barger and Sons for sponsoring this course. Thank you very much, Chuck. All right, I hope everyone enjoyed the little wine education that we just had. And now we're going to work on preparing the couple of entrees that we have here, which are once again provided by Cornerstone Bank this evening. So the first thing I'm going to do is season the beef and the scallops a little bit with a little salt and pepper. And we want to make sure that we get them all nicely seasoned. I like a little extra pepper on mine, because once we sear that in, and yes, I'm just going to do the one side of the scallops for now. I'll do them when I put them in the pan. So I got the beef all ready. And we will put just a little touch of our canola oil on a sheet pan here. And we have the Brussels sprouts. They're all ready to go, but we don't want them to stick. We'll put the potatoes in the oven just in this little pan. And I have a little thing of butter and a touch of garlic. That's all ready to go. All right, so we have everything seasoned. We have our butter and garlic in our potatoes. And we'll throw them down in the oven. And our Brussels sprouts, we'll throw them in there. The oven is still at 350. Now I did put a pan on here and turn it on to kind of medium-high heat. Gonna turn it up a little bit more. And now you're gonna see why you want a oil with a high smoke point, because we want to get that pan right up there to when it's gonna start to smoke. Our risotto, we still have kind of sitting back here, waiting just to be finished off, which we're going to do in just a couple of minutes with just a little bit more of our stock, a little butter, and some Parmesan cheese that we included in your package. So we'll also go over and get another pan cranking up, because we need to cook some scallops as well. But they're really only going to take a minute or two. And a pan for the mushrooms. So while all those are getting hot, and our first couple of items are in the oven, we will, the asparagus are only going to take a minute or so to cook, so we're going to leave them sitting over there. So we have this beautiful mushroom that we're just going to take the bottom off of, and then kind of cut it in half, and then just kind of separate the little different sections, just like you would kind of broccoli or cauliflower for that matter. So we've cut that into kind of bite-sized pieces. And in reality, there's no reason why you can't just cut up the bottom part of the stem a little bit. It is all edible and very good. And for right now, you can just put this right back in the container that we sent it to you in, and then it'll be ready to just toss right into the hot pan. So right about now, you're starting to smell the oil in your pan and wondering why we're not doing anything about it. This may be the point that you want to turn your fan on over top of the stove. And we're going to put our beef right in there and let it start to sear. Nice and hot, because you want to, you want your beef to have a nice brown sear, and that once again is the sugars in the meat that are coming out and give it not only that nice texture when you start to eat it, but also give you a little more flavor. I'm not sure if you can really see it, but these couple pieces of tenderloin have some very nice marbling, and that's the fat that's inside the meat. That's another source of flavor, because as the meat cooks, you will it's the fat starts to break down. So really, everybody talks about lean meat, but you want to make sure that, especially when you're buying steaks, whether they're filet mignon or New York strip or ribeye, that you want to make sure that there's some fat running through the meat, because otherwise meat's going to be tough and it's not going to have a whole lot of flavor. Let's turn the back burner on again. Nice and low. And we'll put a little bit of stock in there and just start letting that risotto get warm again. And I said we were going to wait on the salad a bit, but while we got this going, we should probably go ahead and start working on the salad, because we want everything to be ready relatively close to the same time. So we have a mixing bowl, and we have our lettuce, which we'll put right in the mixing bowl. A little red onion. Our Asian pear, walnuts. We have the demi-glaze in this nice little plastic container. If you have a small saucepan to put it in, you could put it in on the stove right about now also. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick it in the microwave for a second in just a couple of minutes. So once again, we're going to cut our onion. And lots of people think onions are great and eat them just by themselves. I, on the other hand, made my mother make 2 meatloafs when I was a child, because I didn't like onion. But if you cut it nice and thin, I've actually come to realize that they do help to season and flavor a salad. But if you like onion, then you can put a lot in there. If you don't like onion, you just put a little in there. Also, while the steaks are still sitting there cooking, we're going to take our Asian pear, and I'm going to kind of trim it with my knife, but you're more than welcome to use your favorite peeler. We'll check our steaks a second, and you'll see that they're starting to get a little brown around the bottom, and you'll see it starting to come up from the pan. And you see that we have this nice golden brown color working there on both of them. You can actually see a few of the peppercorns that I ground sitting in there. That is going to be delicious. Risotto still hanging out back here, once again cooking a little bit more. You may want to check your risotto. This is obviously my favorite part of cooking. Mine still has a little bit of a crunch in the rice, so I'm good. But it isn't going to hurt at all to just take it off the burner and let it sit until we have everything ready. And really, that's kind of where we want it to be. So that all we have to do when we're ready to put it on the plate is to just warm it up a little bit. Like I say, put that cheese in there, maybe a little stick of butter, and we'll be good to go. So back over to our pear. And this is really the fun part of getting dinner ready here, because we're going to have several things going at one time. I'm sure many of you compost, and so you have plenty of scraps here to throw in your compost pile. So you see that I'm sticking my fingertips into the top, keeping the point of my knife down close to the cutting board and just slicing right through. And then when we do these at the southern end, we kind of slice the halves or quarters in half. And then we're going to julienne them. And I left a little touch of skin on there. So we have these nice little matchsticks of Asian pear. And again, we'll put a little salt and pepper on there. And let's check the things we have in the oven and see how they're getting along. All right, Brussels sprouts are looking good. They're actually cooking a little faster than I thought they would. So maybe we'll take them out for a second. Potatoes are rolling along. Let's see. What do you know? we can put that meat right in the oven there for a minute. If your oven's not big enough or you don't have a saute pan that you can put in the oven, you could just put it on a one of your cookie sheets, or even put it back in, put them into one of the aluminum pans that we gave you. So the next thing we should probably do is let's throw our asparagus in the oven. And I've already taken a minute and put a little oil down on there. So we'll take them. Whoops. We'll throw them down there on the bottom. Now we really need to start getting ready here. Pull this thing all together. The scallops also, you want a nice hot pan so that they sear nicely. And once again, you bring out those delicious sugars. You want a kind of a liberal amount of oil, but not too much. I don't know if you can really see, but you can see I have a little puddle of the canola oil in my pan. I want to be coated, but I don't want to go too overboard. So with the mushrooms, I'm going to put just a little, I have a nice hot pan that I had on a burner for a minute. I'm going to put a little bit of butter in there. And I actually turned the heat down a bit. Got the pan nice and hot, and then turned the heat down. These are very delicate mushrooms, and I don't really want to overcook them or burn them. So I'll throw them right in the pan. I kind of have it on medium heat, about 5. I'm going to let them start to cook, and then I'm going to put a little touch of garlic in there, and a little bit of my white wine left over from last night's dinner. Once again, now I've got the pan with the oil for my scallops starting to smoke just a tad. And I'm going to very carefully, without letting too much oil pop up on my hands, put my scallops in the pan and let them start to cook. I still have the heat on the scallops fairly high, but I am going to turn it down just a bit. And right about now is the time that I'm going to finish off my risotto. I'm going to put about half an ounce or so of butter in there. And I'm going to pour in the Parmesan cheese that we sent along in your packet. You can use any kind of cheese that you would like. I also like to use goat cheese. We use a little Gouda here and there. Smell that. That is delicious. So now I'm just going to turn the heat off on that. And you'll see that the mushrooms are starting to caramelize a little bit. They're starting to get brown. on the sides there. So we'll grab our garlic. And that's really only about 1 clove's worth of garlic. And maybe just a little touch more butter. We'll let that start to cook. And what do you know? You can see on the scallops that they're starting to pull away from the pan a little bit. And you should start seeing a little brown around there. That's those sugars cooking a bit. And I'm just moving them around in the pan a bit so that the ones that weren't cooking the best are, and the ones that aren't mushrooms are beautiful. Let's do this the right way. A little touch of oil, or of wine, excuse me. You always want to take your pan off the fire when you're putting wine in, because we all know that wine has a little alcohol, which means that it can flare up. And oh my gosh, look at that. There's a beautiful scallop. There's a scallop. We have a couple that aren't cooking quite as quickly, but what do you know? All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to turn the heat off on the scallops so that we don't overcook them. We're going to set them right back there on the stove. Stir up our risotto a little bit. That is great. Your wine is reducing on the mushrooms, so we're going to let it go till it's almost dry, which is called au sec. A little tad more butter in there. Everything's better with butter. If your risotto, if you feel it's a little bland, you could put a little touch more salt and pepper in there. Dimmy for about 30 seconds in the microwave. And let's check and see what's going on down here. Asparagus are cooking away. Look at those potatoes. They've even started to brown a little bit. I like my beef nice and rare, but you can see how it's kind of bouncing back up. We'll let it rest for just a minute and see exactly how it is, because right now, while it's hot, it's a little tight. But we're about ready to start putting some plates together here. Just checked my Dimmy and it seems to be ready. I'm going to throw the Brussels sprouts back in the oven for just a second while the asparagus finish up, and then we'll toss our salad and put everything on the plates. So hopefully your meal has come together just as quickly and easily as mine has. All right, now that we have everything cooked and ready to go, the beef. I think in the middle you'll see how it's, as I push down, it's kind of bouncing back slowly. I think it's going to be nice medium rare. I have put my cauliflower sauce back on the stove to warm up a little bit. I have my risotto ready. We forgot the Brussels sprouts, but looky there. They are perfect. I did put my asparagus on a little plate to help kind of clean up some of the clutter. Not necessarily the mess, but the clutter. So for the scallops, we have our sauce. We'll spread a little of it around on the base of the plate. Oop. Make that circle a little bigger. And then we'll put our potatoes down. I said we had a little time to garnish with, so let's sprinkle our thyme around right about now. And a few of the Brussels sprouts kind of right on top. They're gonna fall a bit, but look at that. Couple of crispy leaves there. And then we have our scallops. They should still be nice and warm. That we'll put right around the edge of our sauce. Of course, making sure that we give equal size scallops to both plates. And there we go. This is a Southern End scallop with roasted Brussels sprouts and fingerling potatoes with a cauliflower puree. And you have just put it all together in the comfort of your own home. So there's the scallop dish. Oh, yes. We should pair this with some wine, which I believe we have in the refrigerator. And this is the Valenciso Rioja Blanca. And I think I have drank just about as much Rioja as Blanca as we have sold lately. Oh, that's delicious. And will go very nicely with the sweetness of the scallops and the richness of the cauliflower and the puree and the Brussels sprouts. So I hope you enjoy it. So now we'll put together our beef dish. And for it, we will start with the risotto. We'll put a nice little thing of risotto down here. Beauty of this meal is you have some leftovers for tomorrow because there's still a little risotto in that pan. And then take our beef right out of the pan, stick it right on the risotto like so. Take a few asparagus and stand them up on one side. And our mushrooms. That will kind of let cascade and hang out on the other side. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten our demi-glaze, which is still waiting in the microwave. Nice and warm. If it's cooled off too much for you, just give it another little zap. And kind of put it from about 5:30, 6 o'clock up to about 3. And once again, you now have a beautiful southern end dish ready to eat. So the next thing is, of course, to have a little tempranillo to go with it. Delicious. Enjoy. Okay, so now we're going to toss our salad. And we kind of put everything together a little earlier so that it was all ready to go. And I have been shaking up our vinaigrette because you probably noticed that you could see that it started to separate a little bit. Salads and dressings are often misunderstood. Dressings are just to lightly coat and season the greens. So we just, as you saw, I just drizzled a little bit on there until my greens are about ready. A tad bit more. It's always better to put a little less than too much, because you don't want soggy greens. And then we're going to put our lettuce right in the middle of our plate. And then we're going to put our pear right on top. Hopefully sharing the pears equally, because they are part of the purpose of the salad. And then a little cheese on the top of each one. And a few walnuts around. Give it a little crunch and a little extra flavor. And these are our candied walnuts that we roast a little bit with some butter and honey and some spices, so that they're a little toasted and have a little extra sweetness and spice. And so here we go. We have a Southern Inn Virginia Gold Asian pear salad, some Paradox Farms spring mix. So most of this is from right here in Rockbridge County. Now that you've finished eating your meal, we'll put the desserts in the oven for a minute or so to warm them up. And you can sit there and relax and finish off your glass of wine. Okay, so we finished our glass of wine. And the desserts are warm. I did grab a little spatula to make it a little easier to get the desserts out, if it's gonna make it easier. And that one is falling apart a little bit, but we'll just put that back together. I'll give that one to Sue Ann. Maybe just doing it by hand to be the easiest way, though it is a little warm. And a nice big spoonful of whipped cream. Put that right on the crack spot so she doesn't realize it's been broken. And there you go. Our dessert this evening, sponsored by CMA Valley Dealerships, and we'd like to thank them for taking part of this Palate, Plate, and Pleasure event, along with the other sponsors, Charles W. Barger & Son and Cornerstone Bank. Thank you all very much.